anytime we get asked, especially by newbie investors, hey, what marketing should I start with? Our answer is always the one that you can stick with the longest.
Mhm.
If you're going to do direct mail once, don't do it. It doesn't make sense. You may get lucky, you may get a deal, but if you want consistent deals, then go with direct mail and at least stick with it for at least 6 months. Like do about 4 mailings in 6 months.
Yep.
That's when you have enough data to make a decision whether it worked or not. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Justin and Ryan Dossey. I've said this to Ryan a few times, and I've said this on like other podcasts or interviews. If it were not for Ryan and Justin, probably Resimply would not exist. It was, these guys kind of helped put Resimply on the map. So I'm forever grateful to Justin and Ryan for that. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, when we found you, I think Ryan begged you to be part of your initial 15 test users or whatever, because we were so sick of Podio at that point and ready to burn it to the ground.
I know. I still won't feel comfortable, but he's a good negotiator.
Yeah, absolutely. Using Resimply has been absolutely amazing for our business and our clients and everyone that we work with that uses you guys. It's kind of made everything a lot easier and more accessible, especially when you have something that's built the way Resimply is to manage all of your leads. So I'm very, very happy, and it's very cool to see where it's come from in the last 3 or 4 years or so. Well, we're going to talk about what at first can seem like the most boring subject possible, and that's mail. I'm trying to make it fun because I use this day in and day out. I own and run Ballpoint Marketing, and I want to kind of show people some ways that you can utilize direct mail and make it effective in your business. So just by either quick show of hands or throw it in the comments, whatever's easiest for you, who has used direct mail? All right, couple people. Who has used direct mail and not had any good traction with it? Couple people. Okay. And who's never used it at all? So I've been doing this for a little over 4 years now. When I started in this business, I knew absolutely nothing about mail. I honestly, at one point, forgot how to write a letter because I just hadn't done one in so long. And everything was digital for me growing up. So I never really had to send a letter. But the last 4 years, this is what I've done every single day. We work with thousands of clients around the country in real estate, but also outside of real estate as well. So Ballpoint Marketing is primarily known as a company that works with real estate investors and agents around the country, but we also work with solar companies, coaches, authors, home service-based businesses. We do all kinds of other stuff in the background that's not really advertised or put on our site at the moment. But we've worked with multiple industries, and the stuff that we're going to go over holds true in multiple different industries from what I've seen. So a couple of things I wanted to kind of touch base on first, and then we can open this up for Q&A and make this as conversational as possible. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions or you want to say anything. More than happy to have conversations around all of this. But with direct mail, there's really a couple things that you have to understand to make sure that you're successful with it, right? Chris, I've used Ballpoint. As a matter of fact, perfect. Love it. That's awesome to hear. I know a lot of people on here probably have used Ballpoint, and if not, that's totally cool. What I'm going to tell you works for any direct mail that's out there. So if you guys have used text messaging, cold calling, things like that as your primary lead source, that's getting a little more challenging, right? I've seen it in my business. I've seen it in friends' businesses. There's been companies shut down that were doing text message marketing, and it's very challenging with some of the updates that are coming and that have already happened with 10 DLC and all the different stuff that's out there. So the cool thing with direct mail is that doesn't exist. There's not a 10 DLC. There's not a do not mail list, right? You can literally send mail to whoever you want. There's no, even though people can say hey, take me off your list or I'm going to sue you. There's no legal recourse that I'm aware of that I've seen over the years that I've been doing this by sending direct mail, because every company sends junk mail, politicians send mail. It is a standard form of marketing. Now, with direct mail marketing, there's a couple things that really makes people successful. And if you don't do these, it has the exact opposite of effect. And the first one is the consistency in the amount of marketing you're doing. So one of the things that we see, and we work with people that are brand new to real estate, that have been in real estate for a couple of years, people that are doing 30 deals a month, everything in between, is the lack of consistency that people have when they're getting started. So if you guys are used to cold calling or texting, right? Like those are pretty immediate returns on investment from money out for a marketing list, for sending out the campaign. Like you can get contracts done in a week and a half, 2 weeks, right? You can get deals, you can have money come back in pretty quickly. What's interesting with direct mail that a lot of people don't know or understand when they get into it is it takes 60 to 90 days to really start building that cycle and to getting things in your pipeline, getting the process started and making sure that you're consistently showing up in front of people. So the biggest mistake I always see people make is they'll send out mail 1 month. I didn't get a deal. Direct mail doesn't work. Okay. I understand that at face value, but by being consistent with it, the data and the numbers have shown us that when you have a list of, say, 2,500 people, if you only mail them once, you get like 10 to 12% of the opportunity out of that list. And that's it. Like a very, very small portion of people that are going to respond. Month 2, month 3, that goes up to 30%. And then ultimately up almost to 50% of that opportunity that you could get out of that list is going to come by month 3. So when we're working with people and someone's brand new to direct mail, the one thing that we want to focus on is being consistent for at least 90 days before we prejudge how a mail campaign went. And that could be handwritten stuff, that could be printed, any type of direct mail. Like you have to spend at least 60 to 90 days worth of marketing in order to start seeing the fruits of your labor, right? So I think in my business, I market in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is where I wholesale and flip and buy houses. Down there, we see it's like 68 or 69 days from the time money goes out to money goes back in on a campaign. That's typically our life cycle, is about 2.5 months from the time we start a campaign to when we see money come back in. So being consistent with that is absolutely key. And I'll give you a perfect example. I started this market only 1.5 years ago. And the beginning of this year, we lost our acquisitions person, and we could have chosen to reduce our marketing and just kind of stop while we waited on a new acquisitions person to come in. But what we decided to do is to stay consistent with our marketing, because we knew that those efforts would pay off within the next couple months. So January, February, and March, we were spending $10,000 a month in marketing through postcards, letters, a couple things like that. And I think we had like 2 or 3 deals come through during that time frame. Once we had our acquisitions person and someone who was out there closing those deals, in March, we got 12 deals under contract and closed over $150,000 of wholesale fees the following month. So those would not have been there, wouldn't have been in our pipeline had we stopped and quit too soon. So I want to make sure that, like, whenever you guys are starting with mail, just make sure that you understand it's going to take a little bit of time, right? Questions on that at all? I know I tend to talk fast sometimes, but what questions do you guys have on just consistency with direct mail marketing?
I will agree with that, Justin. It's interesting that you mentioned that. Anytime we get asked, especially by newbie investors, hey, what marketing should I start with? Our answer is always the one that you can stick with the longest.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do direct mail once, don't do it. It doesn't make sense. You may get lucky, you may get a deal, but if you want consistent deals, then go with direct mail and at least stick with it for at least 6 months. Like do about 4 mailings in 6 months.
Yep.
That's when you have enough data to make a decision whether it worked or not.
Yep. And data is a
Right,
big
so
part of that. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So Alyssa has a question. What is the ideal cadence of direct mail? How often do you send?
So we send monthly. I've heard arguments from other people, 4 to 6 weeks is kind of like when you want to be mailing to them. And for me, I like things easy. I don't want to have to track a million different things at once. And if I'm mailing every 6 weeks, it gets a little more complicated for me. Like, I know we're going to have mail go out on the 15th of each month. So we do it consistently on a monthly basis is kind of how we do it. That's what I would recommend, just especially to start. It makes it very easy. It makes it simple. There is the case for people that are like in pre-foreclosure that maybe you don't have that much time, and every state's a little bit different. Some states you get 60 days, some states you get 30, some you get less, like just kind of depends. So there is the argument you could make that for those types of leads, you want to try and maybe send twice in a monthly period. But outside of that, like I would focus on a monthly basis. And that way it makes it very, very easy, makes it simple for you to follow. And you're not having to track like, okay, this went out this date, this went out this date, this went out here. When do I need to mail those again? Just makes it super simple, like all of our sequences that we run through Ballpoint. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, it comes down to doing it monthly is what I would do to make it easy. So you're not trying to track like 3 different things all at once. It's easy, repeatable. Like if you go through Ballpoint and use a sequence that we have for letters or postcards, it's going to be monthly to make it super easy for you guys.
Yeah. And I'm using Ballpoint marketing in my business. Ryan was on one of these calls about a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago. So we're doing exactly kind of what he talked about, the lazy investor approach. So I have Ballpoint marketing mail dropping out first working day, like the 2nd January is when it's going to go out, and we're doing every month. Yeah. And they pick the list and everything for us, and they're handling everything. So,
yep.
All right. The next question is, how long do you stay with the list? That's a great question.
That's a great question. And I wish I had a definitive answer. I'll let you, I do and I don't. So every list is a little different. Every market's a little bit different. So in Cincinnati, Ohio, it could be 5 months. In California, it could be 3. It kind of depends. So what we do is we track response rates on a monthly basis. And we do this in Resimply, right? We have a phone number for the campaign. We know how many calls came in, makes it super easy for us. So what we do is we're mailing a list a minimum of 3 times, right? Like that's kind of like the golden standard of like, let's start at 3 months. And then what we do is we track our response rates monthly. And when we see a huge dip in those response rates, maybe it's month 4, maybe it's month 5, maybe it's month 6, that's when we refresh our data and pull a new list at that point. Now, I will say, like, during that time, we always try and add new data in to a campaign. If you're getting niche lists or you're pulling, say obituaries or probates or pre-foreclosures, things like that, like smaller type lists, like we're going to add those in and continue to mail to those. But I would recommend hitting them at least 3 times so you get the most opportunity out of that list before you like count it as a loss, right? So that's where I would start, is like wait at least 3 months and then look at what your call rate is, your response rates are. And once you see a drastic drop in that, that's when you want to start and refresh to pull new data.
I think another thing to add to Justin's point is like you also want to look at the type of list. If you're mailing pre-foreclosure, and these are people, let's say they were going to have their foreclosure date of end of January, you don't want to mail them for 3 months, so you want to, but on a generic, like your absentee list or your high equity list, I think that's a great idea on like mailing them for 3 months, and keep an eye on your response rate. Once you start noticing that your response rate starts dropping, that's when you like repull the list and then mail them again. There's going to be people that are no longer going to be on the list, but the majority of the people will still be on the list. Chris, you have a question?
Yes, sir. So I don't have a camera at the moment. Otherwise, I would reveal my beautiful face.
That's cool, man.
Perhaps this isn't the time to ask this question, but it was more about the amount of letters being sent out. I don't know if you're going to cover that here in the future, but it's okay for me to ask that question now.
Yeah, that's actually my next point. So I'm glad you brought it up. We can move on to point 2. I love it.
Yeah. So I live in a small town. So I know in the past.
So Chris, just for reference, what's the population, like target area, just so that then I can give you some numbers on how many people I have in my area that I'm targeting. If you can share that.
I will attempt to Google that while I'm speaking with you. If I was a more prepared person, I would have that.
No, that's cool.
I would have that information. According to the Washington County, Texas, 2023 population, it's at 19,477.
Okay, so that's a really small area. Yeah, just for reference, the mailing that Ballpoint Marketing is doing for me, the county that I invest in, it's 500,000, but we took one of the cities out where we don't invest, or like a couple of cities out. So our target population is about 250, 300,000. And I believe we're doing about 7,500 mail pieces or somewhere around that. Yeah, 7,500 to yeah. So,
right.
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
And so that being said, the area that I'm currently living in. It's booming right now. So I mean, just to give you an idea, like we just got our first Chick-fil-A, so it's a serious business out here.
Oh, all right. You guys are coming up in the world.
Yeah, but so my question is you know, if I was to pull a high equity absentee, which I have to mail, and I'm about to mail, along with some other niche lists, it only comes out to like 450 people. So that being said, I know you have recommended in the past like a minimum of 2,500 a month letters. So that being said, would it? I mean, I think so. Sorry, long story short, my niche list came out to like 1,000. So I'm putting out 1,000 letters a month. My question is that a waste of time, or should I try to reach out a little further? There are some cities probably within 45 minutes of me that I could grab a bigger zip code. I'm just not real comfortable going too far away from home, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get some advice on that, what you think for small towns.
Yeah. Great questions. So for me, like you said, like we typically recommend starting at like 2,500 is a good sample size. And I will say that is based on like an absentee with equity list that anyone can pull, right? Like those types of lists, the numbers that we see is like a 0.5% to 1% response rate. So anywhere from 15 to 25 phone calls is kind of what you'd be expecting off of that. 60% of them are going to be somewhat interested. 30% of them immediately just don't want anything to do with you, right? So you're down to 10 to say, let's call it 10 to 12, 10 to 15 phone calls. So of those, you should be able to get 4 to 5 appointments. And if you're closing at a 20% rate, you should be able to get at least one deal out of that. Those are the numbers that like I see on that type of list. Now with niche data, that is going to it's going to increase those response rates and reduce your cost per deal. So a good example, I have a good friend of mine. I think Sharad knows him. His name's Drew Wired. He's a flying investor is his name. That if you ever find him on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but he lives in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's a pretty small area. Don't know if it's as small as where you're at, but it's comparable. He had a campaign we ran, I think earlier this year, where he got 7 deals out of 2,500 pieces of mail. And the difference is he spent a lot of time building his list and finding as the best niche data that he possibly could by combing through county records, doing stuff that most people don't do. So if you have less than that, I think it's definitely worth sending, making and understanding that those response rates might be a little bit higher. You're in a smaller area that's probably not getting as much mail as, say, like St. Louis, for example, right, where I live. You're not going to see as much mail going out for that. So I definitely think it makes sense to send stuff that is less than that. As long as you have good niche data in there, that's what's really going to help increase the response rates on there and get those similar results. If that makes sense.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And Chris, one other thing, if you could, I would go down to the county or your local building department and see if you can pull up a code enforcement list from there, or your county, like tax records and stuff. I think those would give you a bigger, more niche list to go after.
Yeah, way ahead of you, boss. I got a massive list of 20 people, man. It's ready to go.
There you go. I mean, but there's going to be motivation. You know, you don't necessarily need to send to 2,000 people. You just need to send to the right 20 people.
Yep.
All right. Agreed. Daniel has a question. What is your best template that you use, and do you switch them up every now and then, or keep it the same?
Ooh, good question. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right. I'll show you.
And just for reference, I didn't even choose. I let Ballpoint Marketing choose between, I don't even remember if I'm doing postcard or letter.
Okay.
But yeah, I just said, hey, whatever is best for me. Going back to beginning to what Justin said, for me, the most important thing is being consistent over anything else. So I'm curious, Justin, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So this is what I do, and this is what we recommend for a lot of people long term, because I think it's worked really well for us. We've seen it be scalable and repeatable. On our site at ballpointmarketing.com, under a catalog, you'll see this area called the lazy investor sequence. So this is if I want to put something on a sequence, I want to mail people that are going to be going out 3, 4, 5 months, something like that. What this product does is month 1, it sends a greeting letter like this. So got a sample here. So it's a 5x7 that looks like this. It's very colorful. There's tons of different options here. And inside of it is, I don't know how well you can see that, 'cause it's kind of far out, but full handwritten letter with your logo, your website, like everything is pen addressed. This comes with a first class stamp on it. And this is what goes out month 1. So we do this month one, and this is all automated for you guys too. So you don't have to really even do much other than provide your data to us. Month one, we send out the piece that gets the highest response rate, right? To show people who you are, get in front of them, make sure that they're aware of what you're doing, how you can help them. Then what this does is, I'm just going to choose one here. So you can see month one, it's going to send a 5x7 envelope, and then months 2 through 8 on this sequence, it is going to go through a postcard sequence. So there's 3 different styles on here. There's comic style ones, which are, let me see if I can find. So that's the Americana sequence. So it's kind of this style right here. All of our products are very colorful, bright. They stand out above and beyond like anything else that's out there. And that is 100% intentional because they get opened, they get read, they look very nice. So what it'll do is for the next 7 months is it's going to send out a postcard every single month, and the postcard is going to change. Reason being is we're staying in front of them, but we're targeting different reasons why someone might want to sell. So get a cash offer in 24 hours. Maybe they want to get out quick. They don't want to pay realtor commissions. They don't want to clean their house up. Maybe it's really messy. Maybe there's a lot of repairs, so sell your house without fixing it up. Pick your closing date, local cash buyers, as is. So it kind of goes through a different reason why someone might want to sell. And the messaging on each one of these is going to change to match what is on there. So that's kind of the important part, is that the message matches the imagery that's on here. So you're just driving home the point of how you can help people. So this makes it easy and it's kind of nice because month one is a little bit more expensive. Like these ones are $1.40 a piece to start. And that includes literally everything out the door, postage and everything. But then it drops down to 88 cents a month after that. So you're going through a postcard every single month. It's something new, it's different, and it's handwritten. That's what I do. That is what I recommend for most people. And with this, if you guys end up using this product, we can also pull the data for you on this or any other products that are out there that we would recommend and what we're using. And these have had really good results with us, where like in Baton Rouge, I think we spend $2,200 to $2,300 per deal has been kind of where our average has been at. So historically, like I know how much I want to spend if I want 5 deals, if I want 10 deals, how much do I need to spend? And I know within 60 to 90 days, that's where I'm going to be at, and make it very repeatable. Does that make sense and answer that question? Yeah. Targeting different reasons. Exactly. Perfect. Glad that was helpful, Danielle. Michael, which age demographics is the best to focus on when using direct mail? I'm curious what Sharad's thoughts are on this after I say mine, because I might think about this a little bit differently than most people, but I don't typically mail based on demographics. The one exception is seniors with equity. And even that data has gotten a little more challenging to get through like ListSource and things like that. Some of their filters have changed over the last couple of years. But for me, I'm more targeting the reason why they might want to sell versus their age. Now, with their age, there is the fact that like maybe they're looking to downsize. They're not raising kids in the home anymore. Maybe they can't go up and down the stairs and they need to move into a condo or a ranch or something like that, right? So we don't typically include that. And when we do, we will send a seniors with equity list, like probably quarterly. But we know that those leads are going to always take longer. Like every time we've had a deal with a senior citizen, it just takes 3 to 4 times longer than any other deal we typically do. They move a little slower. There's less technology that they're going to be used to doing for sending a digital contract, things like that. So in my recommendation, I would not include age demographics, especially based on where you live. Sometimes that can just eliminate any data that's available because it might not be available to get. Like I think California, like I don't even think you can get it in California at this point. I know South Carolina is like that. You can't get demographic info. So that kind of stuff can kind of skew what data is actually available. So I would personally leave it out. You're muted, Sharad.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just me.
So I can, yeah. I'll say if you can reliably, 100% reliably get demographic data, where people are, the demographic that you're targeting, it's over 50 plus, then I would do that. But that data is not available. So just to be clear, that data is, you won't be able to confidently get that data. So you're going to miss out on the deals. just when I was very actively involved in my business, I would go to the closings. I don't remember buying any property from anyone that was under the age of 50. But
Okay.
we were targeting everyone. We're targeting everyone. So it just happened. We even tried pulling a list of age 50 plus. To Justin's point, that data, the filters don't work properly. So you're going to miss out on people that are actually looking to sell their properties. What you could do is, if you have the data just to test it out, you could put it in recently list stacking, add that tag. And once you've done few mailings, come back and see if that tag, the age tag or whatever tags that you want to add, see how they perform. Then you can go back and just make decisions based on that. But I would not. I would just pull the list based on the motivation point. Like if they're behind on taxes, expired listing, pre-foreclosure, that's what I would go after, and not even look at the age factor in there, because you can't rely on the data that's available.
Yeah. The only way that we have found kind of around it, just with some of those reliability issues, is putting a length of ownership filter on the list.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yep.
if someone's lived there 25 years, odds are they're probably 40 or 50, at least. But yeah, other than that, like it's gotten a lot harder to get that data. And I think it's probably going to continue to be that way.
The challenge that happens is if you do apply the filter of age, let's say 50 plus in this case, it will only show you people that are definitely 50 plus. So it'll exclude a bunch of people where the age is unknown, and you're going to miss out on this whole set of people that are actually 50 plus, but the filter didn't pick it up because the age is unknown in that case. So that's where you run the risk of not going after that. So that's why I would go do based on, equity, length of ownership, and other motivation points that you have at that point.
Good point.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. Sama has a question. If the direct mail campaign did not work after 90 days, could that be a market issue or a list issue?
Ooh, good question. I'm going to try and answer this as directly as possible without adding too much extra stuff into this answer. But so let me start this way. So I'll tackle the market side first. So if you're, and this kind of goes to like quantity of mail that I would recommend. So if you are in a major metro market, let's say million plus of people that live there, right? It's going to take a lot more mail to get a deal done. But typically the turnaround or the profit on those is a lot higher, right? Like I have a friend that he does mail in LA, Orange County, San Diego, like pretty expensive big markets. And it probably costs him like 8 to 10 grand to get a deal. But his wholesale fees are 100 grand. Their, flips are $300,000 of profit, right? So he's definitely sending a lot more mail to get that. So those are extreme cases also. But the way I look at it is like, if you're in a market that is, let's say, 1 million plus, you need to be sending anywhere from like 4,000 to 5,000 pieces of mail a month, typically, to get a deal. And that's pretty repeatable. There's going to be outliers like your LAs or your New Yorks and Manhattans, things like that. But for the rest of the country, like 1 million plus, 4,000 to 5,000 letters or postcards is typically where you want to be. If you're under 1 million and you're in more of like what you'd call a tertiary market, something that's maybe more suburban or more rural, not rural, but more like suburbs, like that kind of areas. Typically what we see is like 2,500 to 3,500 pieces of mail will get a deal done there. So those are pretty close to what we see. Now, if you're within those guidelines of these are the results, or this is the amount of mail I'm sending out, and you're not getting deals, before I would look at the list issues, I would look at the internal processes that you have for two things. The first one would be is how is your follow-up? And are you consistent in your follow-up? Like Sharad knows Ryan and I, like we're relentless with our follow-up. And that's why we get more deals than most people, is because like we send the contract to somebody, they view it, and we call them 15 minutes later. Hey, what questions did you have? Cool. Can I expect that coming over in, the next 10, 15 minutes or so? No? Okay. What questions do you have? Kind of go through that. Like our follow-up is very aggressive, but not to like the off-putting point, but we're there to like help them and make sure that we're going through. So our follow-up is very consistent in making sure that we're not dropping leads or we're not dropping the ball in places. And second is who is running those leads and what does their closing ability look like? Because ultimately, like, you could have the best marketing, the best leads, the best CRM to manage all of this, but really everything comes down to how well you can communicate with people and relate to people and have them like you. And that's what's going to help you close more deals. Like, we close in Louisiana, I can attest to it because of our team down there. Like, we close more deals than other people down there because our guys are like thoroughbred Louisiana guys that just love talking to people. Like, they're like not quite like the swamp people Cajun guys, you know, but like they can act like that if they need to, but they're very just like down to earth. Everybody loves to talk to them. They're there having good conversations and helping solve problems. So those are kind of the first two things I would look at is, am I dropping the ball? Am I marking leads dead too soon? And because what we do is every lead that comes into our system, we follow up with it until they tell us, stop following up with me. Like, I don't want to hear from you again. Don't contact me again. Cool. Totally fine. When you're ready, just let me know. We're here to help. Other than that, like, we have drip sequences, follow-ups, like we build it all out in Resimply to where texting's been a little more challenging lately, but there's phone calls, there's manual tasks, there's all kinds of different follow-ups in there. And we still do include text messages in there, but we're always making sure that we're following up with those people. So that's where I would kind of look first. Lists, from a list issue standpoint, if you're pulling the data that we're pulling for you, or you're using a reputable data provider, typically it's good to try new lists. But the thing that I've seen is, like, sometimes people will accidentally put a filter on a list that shouldn't be there. We had someone recently that did owner occupied vacant properties was their list. Don't know how they did that. If it's vacant, nobody lives there. So you're sending mail to vacant properties, not to the actual forwarding address or the mailing address. Like, they went from like 14 grand a deal down to $2,000 a deal when they made that switch. And it was just like a filter got messed up. Someone did something wrong, and there was some issues because of it. So those are kind of the things that I would look at before I got to that point. But yeah, curious, Sharad, what you would say with that.
Justin, real quick, doesn't mail automatically forward if that's the case?
Not necessarily. So it only automatically forwards if someone sets up a forwarding address. So like, you would, like, when you move and you do it on USPS, there's that automatic forwarding that has to actually be set up. If that's not, it's just going to sit in the mailbox.
Oh,
Yeah,
of
you'll
course,
get the
that should be
mailbox
obvious. Yeah.
return to sender.
Yeah.
I would
Okay,
say,
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, you want to start with you want to start with the right list. Let's say if you pull, I mean, it's happened, what Justin said, it's happened. I know other investors that instead of putting equity of 100%, they put LTV of 100%, and it just completely messed up their list. So if you accidentally pull a list of people that just bought their properties in last 6 months, for example, like, really no amount of mail or marketing is going to get you a deal, because they just, like, I bought the house that I live in. I just bought it 6 months ago. Like, it doesn't matter how much mail you send me, unless you're willing to overpay me, I'm not going to sell my house. So you want to start with the right list. If you have the right list, and then after 90 days or 3 mailings, you don't have a deal, or you don't have like good leads that you're working on, then there's something going on with the process. Either you're not following up enough, or if you're getting appointments, the person who's going on appointments is not doing the right job. So I would look at how many calls you're getting, first of all. If you're not getting enough calls, that's something is wrong with the list that you pulled. If you're getting decent calls, but you're not qualifying enough, then something is going on with the process, where you just, someone calls and says, hey, I'm not interested. And you're saying, okay. Now, if they say they're not interested right now. Like, you want to qualify them, take them to the next stage, of the process.
Yeah.
And that would be the right list for the right marketing channel, right? Because that vacant homeowner or owner occupant makes sense. It just doesn't make sense for
Correct,
mail,
mail.
but it would make
Exactly.
sense for calling. It's the pain points are there.
Exactly. Yep.
And one other data that I'll share, looking at, recently, companies that are using Resimply, especially investors that are doing consistent deals, like 5, 10, dozens of deals a month, they're not all using direct mail as, they may not all be using direct mail as their primary marketing channel, but they all have some direct mail in their marketing. That's like one marketing channel that we notice consistently. Investors that are doing consistent deals, using as direct mail. Not everybody is using PPC, for example. Not everybody is using SMS, TV ads, radio ads, but pretty much everyone is using direct mail. A lot of people are using that as their primary marketing, but some are using that as an add-on to other things that they're doing. Like we have a lot of investors, companies that are doing radio ads and TV ads, and they're supplementing that with direct mail. So that's one thing. Interestingly, we noticed that direct mail tends to be a common marketing channel across companies that are doing consistent deals. Marcin, you had a question?
Yeah, hey Sharad and Justin, just a follow-up note on when to stop mailing. So on your lazy investor sequence, for example, you get a response on the first or second mailing. Do you keep them on the list so they get the following mailings, or do you take them off the mailing list from that point?
Good question. So what we do is anytime someone responds, whether if it's take me off the list, it's an appointment, it's a follow-up, whatever it is, we take them off the list. So because we already have their contact info in our system and they go on a drip sequence, then we follow up with them, we touch base, we always have those conversations with them. But we do take them off of that mailing list. Now, what you can do, like, let's say we'll probably do this twice a year. We'll send out a very small mailing for like non-converting contacts, essentially. And we'll pull a report out of Resimply and say, here's all the people we've talked to. Here's all the appointments we went on, but it just hasn't converted to a deal. We'll then send them something separately. It's going to be a little bit more specific. We'll usually either do like an offer or we'll change up the mail piece a little bit, but we will mail them once or twice more throughout a year on an instance like that. But other than that, we take them out of that list to make sure that we're not continuously sending mail to people that have already responded.
I think another thing to keep in mind
that helps
with that is initially, if you have contacts or leads that are coming through direct mail and you're trying to get in touch with them through call or text, but they're unresponsive, send them direct mail because that's how they initially got in touch with you.
Yep.
Send them direct mail. Maybe, these are people that just feel more connected with or more responsive to something tangible, versus calling or texting. So keep that in mind. Use direct mail in the follow-up sequences also, where you've been trying to get in touch with people, leads that initially came in from direct mail, but now you cannot get in touch with them. Send them another direct mail.
Yep.
Yeah, Elaine.
Hey, Justin, real quick. Thanks, Sharad. When it comes to postcards versus letters, do you guys have more specific information if it makes sense to do maybe all postcards? Obviously, that campaign that you just talked about is a mixture of both, but could you touch on that, on the differences, maybe response rates or something like that when it comes to either piece?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So we'll say with a caveat, the numbers I'm going to give you are for handwritten mail. Printed mail is less than this. So like with postcards, you're seeing anywhere from 0.5% to 0.75% response rate is pretty standard. The 5x7 letters that we do are 1 to 1.5, somewhere around there, where just standard printed media could be like 0.25% or less is kind of what we've seen across the board. There's outliers, obviously, and that can change, but postcards, like I said, 0.5% to 0.75, letters 1 to 1.5%. So the way that I look at this is once you start doing some decent volume, it makes sense to send postcards all day, every day, especially with the handwritten side of things, like the colorful images, like they stand out completely different. But let's say you're sending less than 2,500 pieces of mail, I would send the letters because you're going to get higher response rates for the amount of money that you're spending, and your cost per deal is going to be a little bit lower. Where
and that's
go
ahead. No, I was just going to say, and that's even with the follow-up, or would you just send the initial letter and then maybe hit up postcards afterwards? Or just literally, if you're sending 25 or less, all of them should be letters?
I would recommend doing letters for at least a couple months, right? And that way you're in front of them multiple times. You're sending the highest response rate thing. And there is a difference in how letters and postcards are delivered, which is really the biggest thing that I've seen that causes a differentiator in response rate is these 5x7 letters that we send. They have your first class stamp on them that you'd buy at the post office, right? So what we do is we package these up, we ship them to you, you put them in the mail, they're all ready to go. With these, they show up in the mail 2 or 3 days later, every single time. With postcards, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little square up here on the top left, and this is called a postage indicia. So this is prepaid postage that we have to drop here locally in St. Louis. So when that happens with postcards, with pre-sorted mail or bulk mail, that is always delivered with junk mail. There's no way around it. You can't change it. You can't alter it. And let's say like in St. Louis, Mondays are the day that I get junk mail. These postcards are always going to show up on junk mail. Just is what it is. Can't change it, can't alter it. With the first class postage, if I know, hey, I'm getting the junk mail in my mailbox at home on Mondays, I'm going to put these in the mail on Saturday. And that way this is showing up in the mailbox on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, maybe Thursdays. But that way this stands out. So when you're doing smaller amounts, that makes a lot of sense to do that and to spend the extra money to do that. But if you're sending more than, say, 3,000 to 4,000 at least, I would focus on postcards because you can get a lot more out and still have those, your response rates versus the cost kind of even out to a same or a lower cost per acquisition. Does that make sense?
I had no idea that was the case. So there are like junk mail days. I guess I'll have to pay attention. I didn't know there was something that was sent in bulk when it came to
that. Is so interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
most
that's
people
definitely
don't.
very good food for
That is so
thought.
interesting.
For the next, like, you don't have to do it now because it's Christmas, but like literally just for a week, go to your mailbox every day, and there will be one day where it's just jam packed with all the crap. Sometimes it's two.
That's crazy. I did not
But
know that.
it's-
Okay, that's actually huge. Yeah.
Yep. So that's the cool thing with the greeting letters with that first class postage is you can control that a little bit, right? Like it could get held up in the post office. There's stuff out of our control, but historically it's 2 to 3 days later. So for me, if I'm sending a smaller campaign or maybe my marketing budget isn't as high, I want the highest possible return that I can get. So these are going in the mail a day before junk mail days. And typically like those are county based from what I've seen. So like I'm in St. Charles County, St. Louis County might be a little bit different, but it's usually pretty close. So it's not foolproof, but yeah, like if you ever do direct mail and you do first class postage, like that's a big thing that sets us apart from any other mail house is no one else really does that. Everyone else just drops it from their facility. So you'll have local postmarks from us. But then you can also kind of just plan that out and see, all right, all the crap came on Monday. I'm going to put it in the mail on Tuesday, or I'm going to put it in the day before. So yeah, most people don't know that's even a thing.
And then what, maybe mail a friend beforehand just to see what the delay time might be in your particular city?
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. You could do it yourself as well, right? Like just kind of say like, hey, how did this work? But I will say like, you don't have to spend too much time on it either. Like within a shadow of reasonable doubt, you should be able to know like, hey, what days do you get crap in your mailbox? Like all the value packs and all that kind of stuff. All right, cool. We're going to put it in the mail on that day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I guess the effectiveness
so
about postcards is that you don't have to open up an envelope, right, to see what the message is. Where some
Exactly.
people might be lazy about having to open something prior to reading a postcard's right in your face.
Yep.
But that's a huge point, man, about junk mail coming on certain days of the week. That's massive.
Yeah, absolutely,
That's
man.
really cool. Sama has a question. Would you send another mailer to someone who's not interested, but they're from the right list?
They're not
So
interested.
they called
but
you and they said,
okay.
I'm not interested.
In theory, maybe, but I don't do that currently, if that helps.
Yeah.
That's not something I currently do. I could see a case for it, a couple months down the road.
I would not. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I would not do it right away. Maybe when I repull my list 3 to 6 months later, if they show up, then do it.
Yeah. And true, I guess it does kind of depend on like what list they're showing up on, right? Like if it's a pre-foreclosure list, or that's probably not a good example, but like tax delinquency, right? Like if they're still tax delinquent next year or 6 months down the road, like that's still something they have to deal with. I might send it to them again. I will say you could run into the issue of like someone leaving you a negative review online or something like that. Like that's the recourse that people have because there's no way to report anything for just direct mail abuse or whatever, right? If you're sending too much mail to somebody. So yeah, that would be my guess.
All right. Michael has a question. When building an omni-channel marketing drip campaign or strategy, how direct mail ranks compared to other channels? Do you usually start with it, or is it more like last resort marketing channel?
That's a good question. So for us, and I know people will think little bit different on this. Direct mail is always the first channel we start with. It's always been our number one producer. It's always been our most consistent. It's our most scalable. It's our most repeatable. We do omni-channel marketing, like we do PPC, we do PPL, we do cold calling. We don't do as much texting anymore, but historically, like if I go through and look at my CRM, I think like 85% of our deals come from direct mail. And there are some exceptions to that rule, but from what we have seen, like our goal is to always be out there, right? Like a lot of our stuff that's online for like Facebook ads, for example, it's more brand awareness. It's more like, here's what we do, here's who we are. And then there's the call to action on those as well. But from what we've seen, it's more like retargeting people that have been to our website. It's more brand awareness type stuff, where the direct mail is like the actual true call to action. Hey, I want to buy your house. So that's been my experience. I know some people don't use as much direct mail as we do, but for me, like that's kind of like my third point that we didn't really get too much to, is it's extremely repeatable. And for me, like we reverse engineer everything. So if I know my cost per deal is $2,400 and I want 10 deals, cool, I need to spend 24 grand next month. And that's kind of like the way I look at it. Because if I spend $2,400 and my average assignment fee is 17 grand right now, cool, I'm down to 15 after or 14.6 after the marketing costs, then 10% to our acquisitions manager. I'm still making 13 grand net profit on those deals. And if I do 10 of those, I'm making 130 grand by spending 24. So like for me, I'll do that all day. Those numbers are very easy for me to track and follow. That's kind of the way that we look at it.
Someone asked this question in, I think it was Michael, maybe, the best KPIs. The most important KPI I would say is like ROI, kind of what Justin was saying. For every dollar that you're putting into marketing, how much money is coming back?
Yeah.
If it's less than 3, then either you have the wrong marketing channel or you're not running it efficiently. So for every dollar that you put in, you want to see at least minimum 3 come in. Ideally, you want to see 5x on that, but at a minimum, you want to see $3 coming in. So if you're putting in $1,000 in direct mail on average, you want to see at least 3,000 top line revenue coming into your business. That's absolute minimum. Anything less than 3, I would look at other marketing channels. And I would first look at if you have running it efficiently or not. There might be a lot of waste in your marketing channel, like use different tracking numbers for different marketing lists. I speak about it all the time. If you mail it to, let's say, 10,000 people, and you combine all your absentee, probate, pre-foreclosure lists into one tracking number, you send it out and you make 30,000 on it. But if I ask you, okay, was it the absentee list that got you the deal? Was it the probate or the pre-foreclosure? So you want to use different tracking numbers for different motivations that you're mailing to, so you know exactly which list is working in it. So I've done some other calls in this, but super important. You don't want to look at marketing is going to be the biggest expense for you as you scale your business.
Yep.
So you want to make sure you're making it as efficient as possible. If you can be better at marketing in your business than other people, you have such a huge advantage, huge advantage. But look at ROI. The most important KPI that you want to look at is every dollar that goes in, how much money comes back into your business.
Yep.
Would you agree with that, Justin?
Yeah, that's literally what we look at. 3x or more. Like 3x is our minimum. That even goes for online ads, like any of that stuff. But we're looking for that 4 to 6 ROAS is kind of what we're looking for, that return on ad spend. So
yeah, but anything minimum below 3, I would reconsider. I would look into my marketing channel to make sure you're being as efficient. If you're being as efficient, still less than 3, I would look at a different marketing channel or different list, depending on like how detail you're getting with that. Marcin, you have a question?
In terms of response rate and call to action, do you have a higher response rate when you put, for example, your website on your mailers, or just a phone number, or what has been more successful on those mailers?
That's a great question. And so finish. I have a part 2 to that question. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we include both, right? We include the phone number. The call to action on all of our mail pieces is to call or text. So if you guys are sending mail already and you don't have call or text, especially if you're using Resimpli, make that change immediately, because that's boosted our response rates like exponentially by having that texting option. A lot of people don't want to talk on the phone. They just want to text. So making that easy. But every call to action on our mail pieces is call or text. We include the website on there for more brand awareness type stuff so they can go and look up our site. They know we're legit. The one caveat to that is you might not see the direct same response rate by having that website on there because someone might call the phone number from your website. So as like a whole, kind of expect for even with the website on there, it's typically that same percentages that we mentioned earlier, but sometimes you'll see spikes in traffic on your website when you drop mail. So that's kind of like the only thing to really think about. QR code, Michael just asked, like, what about a QR code? We have a lot of clients that use those and they work very well. I would just make sure, like for me, it's kind of, I think it's personal preference. For me, I want to talk to somebody on the phone as quick as possible. That's how I'm going to have the most impactful conversation, and the less things they have to do to make that happen, the better. But I have a ton of clients that use it. They have great success with it. It's their preference. That's my personal opinion on it.
So Michael mentioned I think the response rates that you were dropping. Postcards, it's reasonable 0.5 to 0.75, handwritten letters 1 to 1.5%, and regular letters 0.25 to 0.5%. Is that pretty reasonable as far as response rate is concerned?
I think it was the opposite.
I was going to say so postcards and handwritten letters are accurate. The regular letters, in my experience, has been less than 0.25%. Like I've seen them as low as like 0.10 or less. So
regular would be like your yellow letters or
yellow
like
letters,
letters,
just
yeah, and like basically number 10 envelope.
Yeah, pre-printed bulk stuff, barcoded material,
yeah,
pre-sorted, like all that kind of stuff. That it's kind of an interesting caveat. It's like you're gonna pay less for the mail, but ultimately it really is. It's like you pay what you get what you pay for, right? So for us, the way we look at it is our postcards they start at $1.10. If you're doing a sequence, they're 88 cents a piece. You could get a postcard that's all printed, has the barcodes on it and everything for like 50 cents. So you're paying an extra 45% on that, essentially 40, I don't know, 48%, whatever it is.
Look at you, man, like cranking those numbers. That goes to like more Missouri school district, like cranking, being so good at math. Yeah.
No, math's always worked for me for some reason, but
no, that's really good.
But doing that, like if I can spend, 1.5 times what I normally would to get 4 to 10 times better response rates, I'm going to do that all day long. It doesn't matter what type of medium it is.
That's why you want to look at the ROI and not like cost of mailer.
Exactly.
It's like, would you rather spend $1,000 in mail and get 50 people to call, or would you rather spend like to get 50 people to call, you have to spend, $5,000 just because it's like cheaper per piece? It doesn't make sense. You want to look at the ROI at the end of the day. Like for every dollar that you put in, how much money you're making. Hey, Brett, you have a question?
Yes. When you mentioned the pricing, like for example, for that lazy investor sequence,
yes,
does that include the postage?
Yes. Every single product on our site includes postage, and it's all first class postage. Even the postcards are still first class postage. It's just delivered a little differently because it's a postcard. We do have some pre-sorted options that are on there. We've tried to make them more challenging to buy, and you have to have higher limits on them just because you have to put a lot more out for it to really have the same result. But that does include postage, everything. I don't have it. It's not live yet, but I will create a coupon code for you guys too. It'll give you like 15% off if you guys want to do any orders. Just use Resimply on it to make it easy. So whatever retail price is, it'll be 15% off of that. I'll have it live in the next like 15 minutes or so for you guys. I forgot to do that beforehand, but yeah, that's including literally everything. The only extra cost that we have is if you do choose to have the product shipped to you, small shipping charge.
All right. Michael has a question. What is a good sample size when you're running a test campaign? Would you say like 2,000 to 2,500?
Yeah.
Minimum, ideally, I mean, depending on the market.
That's what I would recommend. Yeah. Right. 2,000, 2,500 is a good place to start.
Okay. And Katie said, we've tried everything, TV, radio, direct mail always produces the most leads, and not just the most leads, but the most qualified leads. Yeah, same. I would say like even looking at Resimply data, people that are doing consistent deals, they have direct mail as part of their marketing channel. in a lot of cases, it's their primary marketing channel, but if not, they're doing some direct mail. So just keep that in mind. Direct mail generally tends to be very consistent if you have the right list and right process.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, just a coupon code simply for 15% off any product at Ballpoint Marketing. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say too, can you recommend good masterclass for direct mail? I probably need to do one and just make one. I haven't done that yet. So one thing I didn't get to share yet on here is like, if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, I know we covered a lot. Like we'll just like Resimply, like we'll do unlimited calls with you guys. Like if you want to know, like, hey, here's where I'm at, here's my budget, what can I do? Like our team is here to help you guys walk through that. Like yes, our goal is to sell products and help people make money and all that kind of stuff, but we're really here to help you guys. Like our sales guy is my dad, has worked with us for a couple months now. And like, that's what he does is he does these onboarding calls. He does support calls to help people to answer questions. Everything we do is very low pressure, very based off of like, how can we help you and be successful in this? So I'll throw my email in here as well in case you guys want to reach out. I can connect you with him. He can hop on a free call with you guys and just answer any questions. But yeah, like we're here to help you guys be as successful as possible, because that's, I mean, same way Resimply does. Like that's going to help everybody long term. Is how can we help you? So that's our goal.
Hey, Justin,
Thank
before
you,
you
Jeff.
head it out, do you mind if I run one last question by you? It's somewhat
Yeah.
related and you touched on it, but it's regarding lists and age of. I think the question was brought up when you're mailing a list, when to potentially stop it, depending on how long you've been mailing it. But what would you consider on the data side on old lists? Say you have old information or old data from 6 months ago to a year that you haven't used for this type of marketing channel. When would you say a list is too old?
Ooh, that's a good question. I personally, if it's older than 6 months, I'm going to repull the data.
I would agree.
Is what I would do, because there's so much stuff that can happen in that. Like properties are going to get sold, values could change, people's circumstances could change.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Is I would repull it if it's more than 6 months old.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Cool,
Anything
thank you.
6 months, but if it's more than a year, it's a garbage list at that point.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Justin. That was a fantastic call, man. That was
anytime, man.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, it's a great nugget about the junk mail. I had no idea. I just check my mail like once a week. I don't like the area where I live. There's like a common mailbox. So I have to go. It just makes me lazy. So I go like once
Gotta
a
walk
week.
down. Yeah.
I know, man. Yeah. So I just check like once a week, but that's an interesting point that it get delivered on Monday. I had no idea.
Yeah. Nobody. It's funny. The first time someone told me that, I was like, there's no way. And then I asked our postmaster we work with, and she's like, yeah, it's pretty much the same. Like the day varies on each market, but it's going to be,
but it's like the same day every week. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out through email. That code is now live for that 15%. So, but we're here to help you guys. Do a support call if you need to. But thanks for having me on, man. This was fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, guys.